What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome into the Seattle Mariners post-game recap. There's this thing in sports when you win a game and then you play another game and you win that game. And I can't think of what it's called. Someone told me about it once. I think it's called a winning streak, I believe. If that's correct, you guys can correct me in the comments down below. Don't see a lot of them, right? But the Mariners have now won 2 in a row. They improved to 6-8 on the year as they beat the Cubs 4-2. And I am going to break it all down. Before I do me a favor, hit that like button. Helps out the channel tremendously. I am 23 subs away from 3,000. Can we hit it tonight? Can we do it? I think it's possible. If you guys can get me there, hit that sub button. Truly appreciate it. Also, think about becoming a channel member. Members only live stream tomorrow night for Cubs Mariners. And then Sunday, I will be live for everybody for the final game of this series between the Cubs and Mariners. So think about stopping by and joining me on those streams. Not going to lie, been a bit of a tough night for me. Nothing personal going on or anything, but for those of you that have been with me for a while, you know that I am an Arizona Coyotes hockey fan. To keep a long story short, growing up in Seattle, no hockey team. I had family and stuff in Arizona, so I just kind of, I'd be out there a lot and adopted the Coyotes. I ended up moving down here. So they have been my team for a while, and this is now the second team I've lost to relocation in 20 years. The Sonics, obviously, and now the Coyotes. And I'm not going to get into any of it. I'm not going to talk about ownership stuff. I'm just don't want to. I'm kind of similar to the Sonics, a really good young core, guys like Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller, Doan's come up and been tremendous. I'm not going to go into Coyotes rant, but just stinks. Lose another team that has a really bright future and now a fan base that hasn't gotten to watch this team is going to get to reap the benefits of it. Nothing against people in Utah or anything that are going to get to enjoy the team. It's not their fault, but super frustrating. But the Mariners did make it a little bit better tonight with their win. Let's start with the pitching. Bryce Miller, 6 1/3, 3 hits, 1 run. It was unearned. The Ty France, Luis Urias error. 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. Want to point out, too, this is a good Cubs lineup. Bryce Miller, a tremendous start. Not quite as dominant as last Saturday, but last Saturday was one of the more dominant starts we've seen in a while from a starting pitcher. So, you weren't going to repeat that every week, but no earned runs here. Man, Bryce Miller looks like he has taken that next step forward. And I was a skeptic. I was a little nervous of kind of a one-pitch pitcher. We saw him drop off a little bit last year when it looked like the league had figured him out a little bit. You can go look at the Savant page from last year. It's not the prettiest one. Again, Savant, all these things don't equate always to on the field production. It's a tool, right? You got to use it for certain things, but it doesn't mean everything. And I'll tell you, that splitter that Bryce Miller started using this year has just been tremendous. And that was my concern with Miller. If he doesn't have a legit second or third pitch, not just a show me pitch, but an actual weapon, it's going to be tough for him. But kudos to him for putting in the work to develop that splitter. And even the fastball, I think, has looked a little more electric. It's got some sink to it when he needs it. It's got a little rise when he needs it. The four-seamer, the sinker, mixing it up well. He even had a little extra leg kick on some pitches tonight. A little Johnny Cueto, or right-handed Dontrell Willis, since Dontrell was in the booth on Apple TV. So really cool to see. It's a confidence growing for Bryce Miller. He's 2-1 on the year. I don't put stock in a wins-loss for pitchers, but I do put stock in wins-losses for the team. So the more pitchers win, the more it's good for the Mariners. So Bryce Miller, just a tremendous performance again tonight. Like I said, really looks like, again, we're only 3 starts in, but there's been flashes in all 3. Even in the Red Sox start, outside of the Valdez home run, not that you can take that away. And now that we've seen what he's done the next 2 starts, going back, I'm like, he actually threw the ball pretty well against Boston. So far this year, Bryce Miller's, I guess you could say Logan Gilbert, but it's between Bryce and Logan for best starter on the team so far. We're 14 games in. I'm not jumping to anything here saying Miller is better than Kirby or Castillo or anything like that. But man, if Bryce Miller's taken that next step forward, the sky is the limit. It really is. This rotation, I mean, it was already among the best, is getting better. And I'm still a huge Brian Wu fan. Hopefully we'll see him back in a couple weeks. I actually like Wu more than Miller. So, we'll see if that ends up playing out. But I have no problem. Miller wants to be the better pitcher. Tip my cap to that. So Bryce Miller, absolutely fantastic tonight. Like I said, not quite as sharp as last Saturday. 3 walks, 4 Ks tonight. But even the walks, it wasn't like he just lost a hitter completely watching the game. It was just some close misses. I talked about that last Saturday as well when he missed a pitch. It was still right there. He still was hitting his locations, and he has just looked really, really dialed in to me. The first 6 innings were really stress free. I was a little surprised Scott left him in. He threw 100 pitches, which is fine. Then last week it was 78 and he came out. So I don't know if that was Scott just being a little gun shy with the bullpen, which I get right now, right? You're out two of your best arms. So I get being a little nervous about the bullpen right now. That's why I was a little surprised last week when Miller came out after 7 innings. And I criticized Scott for that. Now, listen, I also understand preserving a young arm and not wanting him to throw a ton of pitches. So I don't think it was an end of the world. How dare you? They'll never recover from this type move. But I was just a little surprised. And then today he goes, 100. So every game's different too, right? Pitchers will tell you they're feeling different on certain days. So that's things that it's why I'll be critical of Scott and the coaching staff, but I put it more on the results, right? Like at the end of the day, they're ultimate responsible for the wins and losses. But in terms of little things, we don't know. We don't know if, maybe last week Bryce told him that, listen, he didn't have anything left in the tank. And tonight he did. Who knows? It could be as simple as that. Trent Thornton got the final 2 outs of the 7th, did give up a run on an error. I thought Thornton looked good. He's looked really solid. I liked Trent Thornton a lot last year. I don't think he's a relief ace. I don't think he's a guy that you're wanting in the playoffs necessarily pitching in the 8th and 9th inning of close games, but he's definitely someone that can come in the 6th inning. He's definitely someone that can, if you got a bigger lead, you can bring in, you feel pretty safe. 2/3 inning, there's strikeout. You're going to get a lot of sweepers. We've talked about that before. Trent Thornton, it's going to be a sweeper, another sweeper, another sweeper. And he's going to give some long balls, but overall the stuff is good. He can get swings and misses. So sign me up as someone that has like Trent Thornton. Andres Munoz looked really good tonight, much better than I thought he looked on Wednesday. A shutout inning of work with 2 strikeouts, getting a strikeout in the slider was good to see. Listen, Munoz gutted through it on Wednesday. I didn't think he had his best stuff. I don't even think he pitched that well, but he got through an inning and a third to help get the team what I said was a huge win on Wednesday. And I really do think it was a huge win. And it carried over into today as well. But that was dominant Andres Munoz. That looked more like the 2022 Munoz. Stanek pitches the 9th, does give up a home run to, I believe it was Bush that hit the home run. 1 inning, 1 run, no walks, no Ks. I didn't think Stanek looked great or anything. A couple of the outs were hit. Well, the home run was hit hard, and then a couple line drives hit off of them. But, listen, I talked about this bullpen. Without Brash and Santos, it's survival, right? It doesn't have to look pretty. It's just getting through it. Munoz, you kind of want to look pretty. You want him to look good because, if this team's going to go as far as we think it can go, they're going to need Andres Munoz. Ryan Stanek, like you'd like to have really good Ryan Stanek, and he was fine. This isn't going some tirade against Ryan Stanek or anything. He was fine. He got the job done. They win the game. But, when Brash and Santos come back, Stanek moves down to your 4th, 5th guy. You can't ask for much more out of that. Right now, he's their number 2. And yes, Munoz pitched the 8th. Munoz went and faced the heart of the order, or at least, let's see if it was Suzuki. 2, 3, and 4. And then Stanek for 5, 6, and 7. I will always defend Scott for doing that. He's bringing in his better reliever for the better hitters. I think that's what you should do. And clearly it's not a problem because Ryan Stanek has saved both games that they have taken that approach to it. But anyways, going back to my previous point is that, right now it's, and I use this analogy all the time, so forgive me for using it again, but, in golf, there's no pictures on the scorecards. For some players, I do have pictures on the scorecard. I want them to look good along with getting results. But for like a Ryan Stanek and guys like that, I don't care. Just get outs. Just, find a way to win the game. And then it's another game the bullpen survives until Brash and Santos are back. Hopefully, sounds like Brash maybe a couple weeks away, and then Santos maybe early May, something along those lines. So each game that they go through that the bullpen doesn't make it a disaster or hurt anything is a victory, literally and figuratively, because they literally won the baseball game. So, and again, none of that's like that I'm super worried about Stanek. I just didn't think he looked that great, and I wanted to make that point. Let's move on to the offense. 5 walks, 11 strikeouts. They're still striking out a lot, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I did think they had some better at-bats. Wicks's changeup was pretty nasty, Wicks is a former top prospect, I believe former first round pick. I could be wrong on that. He's got good stuff and mixes it up really well. And that changeup was nasty. And I thought the Mariners actually, outside of a few at-bats from Cal, I thought for the most part, they actually did a pretty good job. And they were rewarded there in the fourth inning with 3 runs, finally stringed together some hits, and it paid off. I did think they had much better at-bats tonight. Still not perfect by any means. This offense still has a lot of room to grow, but I thought it was a step in the right direction. I did think they had some good at-bats, and they at least made Wicks throw some pitches and were able to chase them. That's kind of what we saw from this team a bit last year, right? When they were rolling. They weren't always crushing it, but they would get high pitch counts and, chase these guys after 4 or 5 innings and put up 3, 4 runs. And then you tack on a couple as the game goes along. Now they didn't do that tonight, but they did do enough. And I thought the at-bats were better. JP Crawford, 1 for 3 with a hit and a walk. Again, on base twice, not going to complain about that. Julio, 1 for 4, 2 RBIs. I thought Julio's first at bat, I actually off the bat thought he got it for a home run, but it just kind of died out there in center field. Not even close, really. Maybe just something with the Apple TV, the sound they had or something. I don't know, but I thought right away that he got it to dead center. Other than that, I thought Julio had some tough at-bats against the changeup. Still not laying off some of those pitches. Those tough pitches to lay off, I get it. But it was good to see him get that line drive base hit and score a couple runs. Thought for sure Bellinger was going to catch that off the bat, but he didn't. So that's good to see from Julio. Still not where we want Julio to be. Obviously, with a 472 OPS so far, that's not where you want him to be. I think Julio will be fine. I'm not worried. I'm kind of the same microcosm in the Mariners right now. I'm not going to complain too much. They've won 2 in a row. But, I wasn't worried about the team at 4-8, but it was frustrating, right? And that's kind of the same thing with Julio. Am I worried? No. But you have a right to be frustrated with it. We're played 14 games and Julio has 1 extra base hit or something like that so far. That's not good. I did make a point in my last video. I was talking about Luke Ray, and I said you can't bench Julio. A couple people mentioned that in a comment. I want to be clear. I wasn't saying that you can't give Julio a couple days off to get things right and work on things. I just meant in general, as the season goes along, Luke Raley's not going to take at-bats away from Julio for the most part. I still would like to see Luke Raley get some more at-bats. That was the only point I was making. You can bend if you want to sit him for a couple games, work on some stuff on the side, then I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me. I don't know if we need to be at that point yet, 14 games in where we're already sitting guys for a couple games to work on stuff, but I wouldn't be opposed to it, and the coaches know better than I do on that stuff. So, but good to see the line drive base hit with a couple runs driven in. Ty France, 2 for 4 with an RBI. Ty continues to be hot. We'll pull up the Savant page for Ty at some point, but it's a lot of red outside of the base running and the defense necessarily, but everything else, the barrel rate, all those things have been exceptional. Has Driveline done it again? Boy, should we just hire Driveline like JP last year, Ty this year? At what point do we just bring the Driveline people in and let them take over the roster? Do they know how to make pitching changes and decisions? Because they can do that. I think we'll be in good shape. But no, I can't. Listen, a Ty France bounce back was one of the big reasons for my optimism with this team, or at least in my hope was that they could get a Ty France bounce back, and that would go a long way for this team. And they didn't need him to be, even first half 2022 Ty, but just some semblance of that, something, that resembled the hitter we've seen that was just a pest for other teams. He had that classic RBI single, Ty France going the other way with it. And it looks like Ty is back, at least. And again, 14 games. As much as everybody's a 5 for 5 away from raising their numbers, everyone's an 0 for 5 away from dropping their numbers. So not going to read too much into it. 14 games in. But listen, if we're going to talk about negatives, then positives get to be talked about as well. And as my son is yelling out there about something, who knows, probably a Fortnite issue. But so good to see for Ty France. It's been one of the reasons the offense has stayed afloat so far has been Ty's production. Mitch Haniger was 1 for 4. Jorge Polanco, 1 for 3, base hit and a walk. Kind of doing the same as JP. Would like to see some extra base hits. Would like to see some things in the gap. But I can't complain when a guy comes up to bat 4 times and reaches base 50% of the time in a game. If you did that all season, you'd be you're rivaling Barry Bonds in terms of on-base percentage numbers. Mitch Garver was 0 for 3 with a couple walks. Again, good to see the on-base. Would like to see Mitch Garver, very similar to JP and Polanco, excuse me, start driving the ball a little bit more here. Love to see some hits in the gap, some hits in the corners, some extra base hits, but good to see the patience. I thought he laid off some good pitches, and overall, a nice game for Garver with a couple walks. Cal Raleigh had a rough 1-0 for 4 Ks. He could not lay off that changeup for whatever reason. And it was a good, like I said, Wicks, I thought actually, despite the line not looking great, I didn't think he threw the ball terribly. I think the Mariners just were able to kind of get his pitch count up and then got that big hit. If he gets Julio out there in the 5th, he's getting praised for it. Wouldn't have been a quality start technically, but essentially a start that I would view in my mind as quality. And the Mariners did a good job. Like I said, kept the pressure on, were able to deliver the big hit. So Cal 0 for 4 with the golden sombrero. Dylan Moore is 0 for 3 with a walk. I thought he hit a couple balls hard. There was a line drive, I think, in his last at-bat. Demo's been doing a nice job. Again, at the bottom of the order. Doesn't have to be perfect, but he can keep the line moving. The occasional pop, gets on base. Good base runner. Dylan Moore has shown his value so far this year. Luis Urias 0 for 2 with an RBI. Hit by a pitch with the bases loaded in the second inning. Looked like the Mariners were going to leave him loaded with, they got the base load, nobody out. And looked like they were going to leave them loaded, which, we can complain, but not like we haven't seen that before. We do, it's funny as Mariner fans, we get upset. It's like, we should be used to a lot of this. It shouldn't affect us too much, but listen, took one for the team. We'll take it. I thought Urias made some nice defensive plays. I think I got like a little frog in my throat at third base. Now the arm looks weak. There was a couple throws that and maybe I'm just been spoiled by Gino, Kyle Seager. The last 3 defensive third basemen for the Mariners, Eugenio Suarez, Kyle Seager, and Adrian Beltre. That's about, I know there was Jose Lopez in between there and Sean Figgins a little bit. Figgins played second, Lopez played third. So, but very spoiled. But the arm looks, I have some worries about Urias' arm. But the range and some of the plays he made, I thought were good. He had a nice little backhand play on kind of a short hop. He made a nice diving grab in foul territory. So good to see. I get it. I know people don't like Urias and whatever, and fine. And I'm, again, not going to rehash all of it. He hasn't been great, but he also, when Julio's OPSing 450 and Mitch Garver is and JP Crawford, Urias is kind of like the last of the worries right now. And overall, I think he's been okay. The defense has been fine, minus the throwing arm. Like, that's nothing. It's a big thing. And the offense, he's had some good plate appearances. He just missed, and I don't know if it was in the at-bat. I think it was later in the game. I don't think it was the at-bat where he got hit by a pitch, but he just missed a line drive double, which would have scored a couple runs. I actually think that was in the inning where the Mariners scored 3 runs, if I'm not mistaken. And it just went foul. So it's amazing how, 3 feet to the right and the perception of the game for Urias changes completely, essentially. So, but I thought a nice night in the field for the most part. Like I said, I'm worried about the throwing arm, but at least he did make some plays. So that was good to see. So listen, Mariners win, proved to 6-8. I will say this, the division is off to a rough start. Let me actually pull up the standings while I'm here, and then I'll get out of here for you guys. Remember to hit that like button, hit subscribe for me, helps out tremendously. Let's take a look, because I think the Angels are actually in first place. Now, Texas is in first at 8-6. They haven't looked amazing yet, but they're only served. Angels are 7-6. They've got a healthy Mike Trout. If he can stay healthy and some of the pitching can develop, I don't think that's an awful baseball team. I'm a big Ron Washington fan. I don't think he's like some genius tactician, but I think that's a good guy to have in that clubhouse to keep them from letting things spiral. You've got the A's and the Mariners at 6-8 and the Astros at 4-11. So, and listen, the reason I haven't brought up the standings before is, again, we're like a week into the season, 2 weeks. There is 148 games left to play. So we really shouldn't be checking standings too much. But it is good news that, like the rest of the division, no one's off to a 13-1 start in the division where they've already built up like a 6-game lead. Mariners are 2 back at Texas. The Angels, I think, will drop off. They may be okay, but I don't expect them to compete. The A's are not going to be good, although, 6-8, not a bad start for them. Houston, I'd actually be a little bit worried. And it's not meant to be a dig. I don't get into the trolling, trash talking. But now with Framber Valdez going down, I do think there's some legit concerns for the Astros. There's legit concerns for the Mariners, too. This is not a trash talking point. And I think the Astros will probably be fine. I'm not expecting them to fish behind the A's or anything like that. But I do think there are some causes for concern for Houston fans a little bit. So, point is, no one running away with the AL West right now. Mariners are fine. Greatest start to the season, no. Starting to play a little better, though. Even on that road trip, despite the Sunday game in Milwaukee where they got blown out, I did think they were more competitive. Could have easily won that Friday game in Milwaukee. Toronto, they got off to slow starts, but they rebounded in the games and they win the last game of the series there. I think they're starting to play a little bit better than they get the W tonight. So let's see. This was an important game to get, I think, in this series. You've got Emerson Hancock going tomorrow, which makes you a little nervous. Hopefully we get the good Luis Castillo finally on Sunday. And Mariners have a chance to win their first series of the year tomorrow. So Emerson Hancock can give you 5 innings, 1-2 runs, and the offense can do some damage. I think obviously if that happens, you got a chance to win, but you guys know what I mean. I think that's what you're looking for Hancock, and hopefully the offense can get some runs as well. And then we get our first series win of the year. And despite not having a series win, I'll take 6-8 with that. So again, these last 2 wins don't fix all the problems of the first 12 games, but it's also a good reminder that we are very, very early in the season. And the Mariners are 6-8, which again, not good. But you've got a lot of your good players still not playing well. We still got Castillo, Kirby not finding their groove. Julio and JP did okay tonight, but those guys, Mitch Garver, Jorge Polanco really haven't found their groove yet either. Cal Raleigh, he did have the game-winning home run on Wednesday. But in general, a lot of these guys just haven't found their footing yet, and this team's still hovering around 500. So I'm going to take that as a positive because once these guys get going, I think this team has a chance to take off. Remember to hit like, comment. 23 subs away from 3,000. Can we hit it tonight? Thank you guys so much. Also, check out my promo code on SeatGeek. Use the app or the website for $20. Use promo code JSTrident for $20 off your next purchase. Have a great night, everybody. I will be live tomorrow night for the members stream. So think about becoming a channel member. Contest giveaway. Become a member and you'll see the details in the community tabs. Chance to win a contest. Then Sunday, I will be here for all of you for Cubs Mariners Game 3. Have a great Friday night, everybody. Take care and go Mariners. Peace.